Well, now BBC Radio 4, the omnibus edition of our drama serial The Power of Life and Death by Mark Lawson. When a number of distinguished members of government committees are found dead in suspicious circumstances, it falls to DCI Kate Duncan, played by Hayden Gwynn, to discover what, if any, is the connecting factor.
Morning. Or is it still night? Your coffee?
Oh, phew, you got my text.
Yeah, but latte wasn't a word they recognised, so I went for white. Still, amazing to find anywhere around here at 4:45 in the morning. It's getting like New York.
What? Oh, 24-hour culture. Otherwise, Buckinghamshire's still arguably some way behind.
You willingly gave yourself up to death.
Is this your first exhumation, Detective Sergeant?
Yes.
It's a rite of passage for a copper. Like your first autopsy. Though less gory, everything happens behind screens. All we'll see is the coffin being carried away in a bigger box.
Are they always this early?
Yes, first light, by law. Maybe to reduce the risk of being watched. Some kind of pagan hangover, I suppose. Although Dame Imelda is getting prayers.
As the mortal remains of Imelda are taken to another place of rest, we put our trust in you. May those who bear responsibility in this process show care and compassion.
I was glad Andy had asked to be cremated.
Given wisdom and skill.
It's irrational, I know, but I found it easier to think of him as dust than down there.
Sure.
Lorenzo, you don't have to feel uncomfortable when I mention my dead husband.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I think it's the people around me who need the bereavement counsellors, not me. Of course, another advantage of having Andy burned is that nobody will ever be able to find out if I killed him.
Do you really think there's a chance this old bird was murdered?
Well, they don't do exhumations unless they have to. Opening graves messes with the paperwork and people's heads. I think our crazed overlords are just being cautious. The lady in that grave had good connections, and you know what A.C. Briggs is like.
DCI Duncan.
Assistant Commissioner.
I think there's another little puzzle coming your way. Why that face, Kate?
Well, I've still got leave stacked up from the previous two. We're a small squad, sir.
Well, you're running a sensitive cases squad in times when the force is walking on, let's say, the only way out of Eggshell Alley is Thin Ice Lane.
Unless you get stuck in Metaphor Muse.
What?
Who are we trying not to upset now?
Do you recognise the name Dame Imelda Sharp?
I'm getting a flashback to episodes of Question Time. She'd be the token woman who wasn't a politician.
She'd been a teacher, went into the Ministry of Education side. After that, committees, reports, inquiries. She was on the Police Complaints Commission for a long time.
And what had she done, or had done to her?
Dame Imelda died just before Christmas. 82, and no great surprise to the GP or the family. But recently we received suggestions that there may have been suspicious circumstances.
What kind of suggestions?
Letters, anonymous. These are copies.
Are there questions to be answered about the death of Dame Imelda Sharp? Are you certain Dame Imelda Sharp died from congestive heart failure? That's an interesting level of detail. Look at this one. Was Dame Imelda a victim of NHS drug rationing? Again, very medically specific.
Yes, if it's mischief, it's informed mischief.
But the reason we're taking this so seriously, I assume, is that she had enough police connections for the Met to send you to the funeral.
That isn't how it works.
No. And isn't it a Sharp who writes that column that has the 6th floor reaching for the deodorant every Thursday morning?
Dame Imelda's daughter is a journalist, yes.
Ah.
No, not ah. Contrary to your cynicism, Hermione Sharp doesn't think her mother was bumped off. She's vehemently against an exhumation.
Ah. Which, as a cynic, makes me interested.
Yes, I thought you'd want to see her.
I thought we'd meet here rather than the office, Detective Chief Inspector. Once the word goes round the PA circuit that the bill is in, journos have a tendency to be paranoid.
Do they? Long time since I've been called the bill.
Oh, yes. Excuse my newspeak. Papers like ours are written in this peculiar slang. Short words fit better in headlines, and they give a bit of variation. You can't have the words Prime Minister and mistake in every sentence. Are you sure you won't have one of their cakes? We always have a box sent in on office birthdays.
I won't. I've read your views on women who let themselves go.
You got told, as my daughters say. You can probably see that I'm 20 pounds heavier than my byline picture. In that difficult interlude between beauty and Botox, God bless Photoshop. I don't suppose you read our rag?
I see it.
I see.
Did you and your mother get on well?
Well, we wouldn't have troubled the fire brigade. She was a good sort, I suppose. By which I mean she did a sort of good. All those committees and fundraisers and inquiries. A lady of the letterheads. They'll struggle to find people to do it all in the future. I can't imagine my generation playing Solomon for a train ticket and a plate of stale biscuits.
Were you very disappointed that your mother didn't leave you any money?
Blimey, you have been reading up on me. No, Mummy thought I made enough myself.
But you had been a beneficiary for most of your life. Dame Imelda made a new will a year before her death, removing you. Did you know that?
I suspected it.
Why do you think she did that?
Mummy was pleased that I'd done well, but I think she really wanted me to do good. Or at least wrote for The Guardian rather than this rag.
I think you were contacted about some letters we received.
Yeah.
I have copies here.
Look, I read them. I was mildly surprised that someone knew or had bothered to find out the cause of death, but no idea what they meant by her being... yes, here it is. A victim of NHS drug rationing?
My understanding is that you didn't take the letters very seriously.
Well, no, I'm pretty sure it's someone trying to get at me.
At you?
Yes. The thing is, you may also have noticed that it's not a very kind profession. To be honest, I even wondered if this was the revenge of a copper I pissed off.
So you're suggesting that someone might be trying to set you up?
Well, that's my worry, yes. Sending me a stick to see if I get hold of the wrong end. Happens to columnists all the time, especially since the internet.
Isn't that a little paranoid?
Look, if you saw my inbox in the morning after a column, I was referred to the Press Complaints Commission 14 times last year, never successfully, as it happens.
Well, if the Police Complaints Commission consisted only of senior coppers, I guess we'd be in the clear as well. This may seem an odd question, but do you happen to have kept a lock of your mother's hair?
Hardly. We didn't have that kind of relationship. Why would you want it?
Depending on the date of the sample, it can be used for toxicology tests. Hair absorbs toxins, and they stay there.
Oh, yes. So, in the absence of a lock?
If it came to it, I'm afraid it would be exhumation.
You know, I really don't want that.
I'm afraid it wouldn't be up to you, Miss Sharp. The decision is with the Home Office. It will depend entirely on the weight of evidence.
Right. Amen.
Just 4 months ago at the funeral, they'll have prayed for her resurrection. But they didn't mean as quickly like this. Ah, here she comes.
Are they usually no family?
Often. Would you want to get up in the middle of the night to see your mother dug up? And in this case, the daughter was, well, dead set against the whole thing.
Which makes her prime suspect.
But too early, Rob. The usual rules when investigating a death. Look into the life.
Thank you. We move on to our next question, which comes from Mrs. Fiona Irving.
My husband has been diagnosed with a terminal illness. His specialist has identified a drug which my husband's specialist believes would significantly increase both length and quality of life. But the local NHS refuses to fund the drug. However, if we lived in one of 2 neighbouring counties, the treatment would be paid for. Can this be just or fair?
All right, let's hear first from Dame Imelda Sharp.
First of all, Mrs. Irving, I think everyone will sympathise with you. Many, including myself, may also sadly empathise. But the fact is...
Okay, let's stop it there. That's interesting.
What is?
The fact that she makes such a deliberate distinction between sympathy and empathy.
Isn't she just the type to use 2 words where one would do? They're the same thing.
No, they're not. As one of my lecturers once said, if Mick Jagger had called the album Empathy for the Devil, we'd have had even more respect for him. What she's saying is that she has personal experience of being denied, or knowing someone who was denied drugs.
Or maybe she doesn't know what the words really mean.
She seems the kind of woman who would. DCI Duncan? Right. Yes, OK. Well, thank you for being so quick. The preliminary toxicology results on Dame Imelda are in. Her body contained significant levels of Viscerant, an experimental cancer drug.
But wasn't it her heart that did that? We've got the death certificate here somewhere.
Yes. We need to talk to her GP.
Dr. Creedy.
Dr. Creedy, I'm DCI Duncan. I'm investigating the potentially suspicious death of one of your patients, Dame Imelda Sharp.
Yes, indeed.
I'd like to ask you a few questions. Dr. Creedy, were you at any point treating the patient for cancer?
Well, in common with many, even most of her generation, she had experienced basal cell skin cancers, which were removed, but she had not presented with any other carcinogenic condition.
So you hadn't at any point prescribed to her the drug Viscerant?
No. An anti-cancer of that kind would, of course, commonly be prescribed by a hospital consultant rather than a GP, but that distinction is irrelevant in this case.
Why is that?
Because there is nothing to suggest that it was ever indicated for Dame Imelda.
Could she have been seeing another doctor?
That's always possible, of course. Some patients scuttle between public and private medicine.
Doctor, how could you explain the presence of Viscerant in the patient's body at the time of her death?
Is that what the PM shows?
I need you to answer that question.
Well, I could only assume a mistake had been...
At your surgery?
In the autopsy.
Doctor, I'm going to have to come and see you.
So, Gov, another doctor death?
Maybe. But it's also possible that someone convinced her she had cancer, or that somebody mixed up the drugs. Frankly, if she hadn't been on the Police Complaints Commission, she'd have stayed buried with all the other mistakes doctors make. Do you have the CDs? I want to get more sense of her.
All right, let's hear first from Dame Imelda Sharp.
First of all, Mrs. Irving, I think everyone will sympathise with you. Many, including myself, may also sadly empathize. But the fact is that the exercise of public policy involves tough decisions. The NHS is not a bottomless pit, and so hard choices have to be made about the value of particular treatments, which is why we pay people to make those unenviable decisions.
Perhaps we could try paying them a bit less.
Max Chambers of the Daily News.
I don't want to personalise this at all, but you, Dame Imelda, have been a public servant in a variety of positions, and I am sure you have been very well rewarded for it. Maybe if your pensions were a little smaller, there will be more money available for cancer drugs.
I think it's a little ungallant, Max, to drag into this my own emoluments, which were not by any standards vast. And I was only involved in the smallest possible way in the creation of public policy. These are, as I say, tough decisions. They're being asked to exercise the very power of life and death.
State your names and business, please.
DCI Duncan and DS Lorenzo, as arranged.
Oh, yes, of course.
Good evening, Doctor. Looks as if you've had a visit from the local force's personal security advisor.
My office is right at the end of this corridor. Not ideal, given that half our customers can't walk, but we're a big practice.
Are you often here late on your own, Doctor?
What? Oh, you think that's when I falsify the records and death certificates with no one around?
Oh, not at all.
No, that's a line you have to pursue. I understand that. After Shipman, we're lucky every patient we certify isn't dug up.
Why do you keep these hours, though? Are you short-staffed?
Not really. We're one down in the dispensary at the moment, but that's standard stuff in any business. The late nights are partly that, more and more paperwork. Patients tell me it's the same in your line of work.
Snap.
And ever more levels of meddling.
That sounds familiar.
10 years ago, the patient coughed, I listened, I prescribed. Or not. These days, there'll be 7 emails from the PCT telling me which linctus I'm allowed to give them.
PCT is primary...
Primary Care Trust. The way I explain it is that it's as if GPs are MPs and the PCT is the government. They set policy, we get the whinging constituents. Here we are. Pull that other chair across. We only use 2 for mum and child consultations, or infertile couples. So, Dame Imelda Sharp. Well, as this is a potential murder investigation, I have authority, as it happens from the very PCT, their ears must be burning, to drop patient confidentiality.
Were you surprised when she died?
With her conditions, she wasn't ever going to blow out 90 candles, but conversely, I've had other patients with an identical profile who didn't make 80. She was more or less in the middle of the predicted outcomes.
In the simplest terms, what killed her?
She had left-sided heart failure, which can take years to play out, and did. What happens is that the heart pumps less and less efficiently so that fluid builds up in the lungs. As is often the case, she first presented with dyspnea and edema.
What?
Breathlessness and swollen ankles. The standard treatment, which, as her records show, she received is diuretics to disperse the liquid and inhibitors to regulate the heart rate. I had her on furosemide, digoxin and benazepril. Fairly standard combinations. It's all about trying to keep the pump going.
So if a patient in her condition was suddenly given another drug, one she wasn't supposed to be on...
Literally a shock to the system. Especially as it happens with an anti-cancer. They tend to be at the sledgehammer end of the medicine cabinet. Cardiovascular strength is often an issue in prescribing them.
Doctor, what was your reaction when the autopsy report showed an overdose of...
Viscerant. We had never been treating the patient for bowel cancer, so why should she be on that treatment?
Could she accidentally have been given the wrong drug from the dispensary?
Look, I can't say it's never happened, but the point is that she couldn't have been given Viscerant from this surgery because it wouldn't have been in stock. Our PCT hasn't approved it for use.
Ah.
That's the postcode lottery people go on about in phone-ins.
In effect, yes. There are 2 layers of rationing. You've heard of NICE?
Well, I've read the National Institute...
of Clinical Excellence. NICE decides which drugs can be used in this country, you see. And if they don't like it, you either buy or fly. But even if NICE does like it, a local PCT may decide it doesn't like the price. So, yeah, 2 patients, 2 counties, same tumour. One gets the funeral, one gets the birthday party. And they call it a national health service.
Could Dame Imelda have got the cancer drug on the internet or somewhere else?
Well, she could have. It's the curse of modern medicine. Half my patients diagnose themselves on one site and choose the cure from another. If I'm lucky, I'm a second opinion. But why would she? As I keep saying, nothing in her story suggested that illness.
OK, we can leave you to your emails. But we will have to speak to the dispensary staff, I'm afraid.
Well, you can talk to who's around, but not until tomorrow.
Sure. Good morning.
Hello. I'll need the prescription you're collecting.
No. We're DCI Duncan and DS Lorenzo.
Ah, yes. I'm about to pull the shutters down for lunch anyway. Come round.
For the record, you are Sue Wells and your dispensary manager.
For acting, Dee Mortimer's usually in charge, but she's away.
Oh, dear. I hope she isn't...
Oh, don't. Every patient thinks they're the first with that. No, she's taken a career break. It's a new thing they've brought in.
Yes, we have it too. Look, what possibility would there be of somebody picking up the wrong drugs?
We've never had it happen in my time.
But theoretically, it could.
Well, have you ever got an innocent person locked up?
No. No, not that I know.
Well, that's me in killing patients, then. Now, the name and number on the box is checked against the name and number on the form.
Tell me, can you think of any innocent way that a patient could end up taking the wrong drugs?
Oh, yes.
But you just said it couldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen here, I said, but, well, yes. It's obvious. In a hospital or a care home, lots of pills on a trolley, even an elderly couple in their own house, both on different medication.
Oh, God. Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, Rob. I feel a complete wally. I never thought to ask the daughter or the doctor if she'd spent time in hospital. Or even if she'd been on holiday with another Doris and they accidentally swapped bottles.
The team's on it. They'll call me.
The time we've wasted if this turns out to have been accidental contamination.
I don't know, though. Then why didn't Dr. Creedy offer that as a defence when he must have talked it over with the pill lady? And if it is just a mix-up, why the letters in the first place?
That's quick. If it's to say Dame Imelda died in a home, we could be in our homes by lunchtime.
D.S. Lorenzo? Really? When? Read it to me. Crikey. I'll tell her.
So, tell me, she'd been on a 1,000-cabin cruise ship just before she died. The case is off.
Oh, no. The case is on. We've just been contacted by the PCT. The autopsy on another of Creedy's patients has shown fatal levels of a drug for a condition she didn't have.
Let's get back there. Looks as if our Dr. Creedy may be the next Harold Shipman.
The Duncans to room 4 for Dr. Creedy, please.
Apologies, Detective Sergeant, for marrying you off to your boss.
No worries.
I thought it easier to pass you off as a couple coming for a consultation. Patients are often paranoid enough in waiting rooms.
Well, we wouldn't want your customers any more worried.
Ouch.
Lady Patricia Carey.
Yes.
Did her death surprise you?
You asked me this yesterday about Dame Imelda. At 81, Lady Patricia was within the shaded part of the graph, as it were. She was not terminally ill, but at some point there would be a terminus.
The reason that there was an autopsy in her case was that she hadn't seen a doctor for
In the fortnight before she died. Yes, that was one of the precautions introduced after the wretched shipman.
Lady Patricia died suddenly?
Yes. Her son, who was visiting her, found her in bed.
In our job, as in yours, we're not supposed to jump to conclusions, but we do. What was your best guess as to what had happened?
There had been signs of vascular disease, clogged arteries to civilians, which we were beginning to treat. I took that as the villain.
But you've seen the autopsy report?
I have.
And what was your reaction?
Completely mystified and alarmed at the implications.
Had Lady Patricia Carey been prescribed vesicant?
Not with my knowledge. And I would have been surprised if she had received it in any event, as there was no indication of the condition.
And what were you treating her for?
She was in pretty reasonable general health for someone of 81. Her main problem was chronic rheumatoid arthritis with a complication of cervical myelopathy.
I'm afraid I don't speak Holby City.
The latter is a compression of the spine. Her movement was becoming quite restricted. In association with her orthopaedic consultant at the hospital, we'd settled on a regime of DMARDs.
DMARDs?
I'm sorry. Disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, which were the last before one big thing for treating RA. In fact, both the consultant and I had been keen to try her on TNF inhibitors. These are a new line which actually arrest the inflammation process, but unfortunately they are red triangled.
Red triangled?
Yes. It's a system commonly used by primary care trusts now. Suppose, Detective Chief Inspector, that you present to me with migraine.
That's uncanny. How did you know?
Oh, there was something somewhat photophobic in your squinting at the light. But look, this is what I do. I type migraine into this page here. And this site lists the available licensed drugs. A green triangle means that they're approved for use by my PCT. A red triangle means they're not.
And is that because they're dangerous?
No. Well, sometimes. It can mean that they haven't been licensed by the National Institute for...
Yes, nice. We've got the hang of that one.
Or that clinical trials have not been completed. But no, to be honest, green usually means that they're cheap.
Really?
I'm afraid so. One of the things that surprised me about the presence of Vesican is that, in common with the drug that you asked me about yesterday...
Viscerant?
Yes. Both of them are red triangled here.
Right. So we've got quite a problem here, haven't we, Dr. Creedy? Dame Imelda Sharp seems to have died from a drug you hadn't prescribed her for a cancer she hadn't got. Now the same thing seems to have happened to Lady Patricia Carey. Why is it that elderly titled ladies in your practice are being killed by pills they aren't taking?
Look, I find it inexplicable as well.
You understand that we'll need to speak to the dispensary manager again?
The acting dispensary manager. Yes.
Yes, the system records every prescription signed out to a patient and the name of the person who collected it.
Could you show us on the computer the most recent records for Lady Patricia Carey?
Yeah, here it is. Methotrexate, azathioprine, cyclophosphamide, ketoprofen.
And when was the last time she got them?
There it is.
That's about a month before she died.
Does it say who picked them up?
Well, it will. We just have to... Oliver Carey. Well, that's her son. He's a doctor, actually.
Really? Round here?
No, Oxford Way.
And can you do Dame Imelda Sharp for us?
Yep. Here. Furosemide, digoxin, benazepril, 1712.
Again, about a month.
And who collected those?
Hermione Sharp, the daughter.
When we were here the other day, you told us that when a patient dies, you encourage unused drugs to be returned.
Uh-huh.
Are there records of that?
Do you want to check those two? Sharp, Imelda, yes. Several packets were brought back about 10 days after her death.
And do those drugs get given to other patients?
Well, no, not now. They used to. But there was a new regulation a few years ago. They either have to be burned, or apparently, some go to the developing world.
And the fact that you can't reallocate them, that's because of fear of contamination?
Well, I suppose so. Or sued. Most of it's about not being sued now. Patricia Carey. No, nothing returned.
So if there was anything left, they'd be at the house?
I imagine.
Right. And if, say, you're dispensing a prescription, would you also be the person who took the drugs off the shelves, got them ready?
Not necessarily. The people we know are coming in for renewals. We'll bag up the prescriptions first thing, but that might be me or Dee, whoever.
I think you told us Dee Mortimer is on a career break.
Oh, that's right.
Do you happen to know if she's at home?
She went travelling, I think. A cruise and then staying with people. That's what I'd probably do if I were a widow like her.
Do you have her number on your phone? Workmates often do these days.
Oh, yeah.
I'll need it, please.
Here, I'll write it down.
And we'll also need Lady Patricia's home address. DCI Duncan, DS Lorenzo. We're investigating the death of Lady Patricia Carey.
Ah, yes, I'm Ollie, her son.
Dr. Carey.
Strictly, yes, but I shrug it off between consultations. Come in.
Thank you. We gambled that there might be someone at the house.
Yes, I was staying here while we made the funeral arrangements, which, of course, were delayed by the PM. We're probably best in here.
Were you happy with the treatment Lady Patricia received?
Well, this is complicated. There's a certain egotism in all professions. But the regime Tom Creedy and the consultant came up with was pretty much what I'd have done. Of course, in Mother's case, there was a further complication, as she kept a beady eye on what she was being given herself. To paraphrase the late Princess of Wales, there were 3 doctors in this consultation.
Lady Patricia was a doctor?
Oh, yes. Retired, but she used to run the practice Creedy has now. And I don't think a lot of people around here even realised. She used to grouch that they took her as some kind of aristo who'd never worked for a living. I don't know what it's like when chief constables are burgled, but it's a bugger being a doctor's doctor. Mummy sometimes seemed deeply suspicious of poor Tom Creedy.
Really?
Yes, to the extent that I began to wonder if it was paranoia as a symptom of dementia. A few days before she died, she claimed that he'd turned up on her doorstep unannounced.
Right.
He said she'd requested a home visit. She insisted she hadn't. She sent him on his way.
OK. And what was your reaction as a doctor, rather than a son, to the autopsy results?
I felt it was probably a misunderstanding at the lab. You see, 2 of the drugs Mother was given for RA actually are used in certain circumstances to treat cancers. But when the substance turned out to be cetanamine...
Cetanamine?
That's the generic term. The brand is Vesican. There was clearly no way that was indicated in her case, and I don't know if you know, but it's not actually available in this area.
And at the time of your mother's death, there were presumably incomplete prescriptions.
Oh, yes, I've got them in my bag over there. There you go.
If I were a doctor, when I heard the autopsy results, I'd have checked the packets to see if...
Yes.
Go on.
The furosemide didn't look like the kind I prescribe. I was going to check them at work.
We'll do that. You bag them as evidence, Rob.
Of course, if someone has somehow given her a rationed drug, accidentally or deliberately, it's horribly ironic.
Why ironic?
Oh, one of the things Mother did in her retirement was to sit on these drug licensing committees. I used to say that what she did after she stopped working made it hell for me at work. You can imagine what it's like. A patient hears about some super drug on the radio, and it's our job to tell them that NICE or the PCT won't let them have it.
Gov.
Yes, we're almost done here. Dr. Carey, you wouldn't happen to know which drug decisions your mother was specifically involved in?
Oh, no. She was always terrifically secretive about that, almost as strict as patient confidentiality.
Tom Creedy.
Dr. Creedy, it's DCI Duncan.
Ah, yes. Hello.
Is it true that shortly before she died, Lady Patricia Carey refused to be examined by you at her home?
Well, not exactly. There seemed to be an appointments cock-up. A home visit request had been recorded in the diary, and when I arrived, she insisted she hadn't made one.
Oh?
Well, these things can happen. We do have more than one patient with that surname.
OK, thank you, Doctor. Goodbye. Well, he wasn't very convincing on that, Rob.
You're thinking that he turned up to visit her because if she'd been seen by a doctor within a fortnight of her death, there wouldn't be an autopsy.
Yes. Gambling that at her age, she might just let him in. But what's his motive? And how did he get the means, given that those drugs are unobtainable? What are you... Every time I look up, you're shuffling those newspaper printouts.
They're Hermione Sharp's columns. There's a reference somewhere to drug rationing.
Well, yes, that whole series on patients buying drugs off the web. But we've ruled her out as a suspect. Whatever did happen, happened at Westbury Medical Centre.
No, not the series. There's another one somewhere. Something about her mother.
Her mother?
Yes. Here it is. Headline. For God's sake, stop playing God. Hermione Sharp writes.
Really?
So the victims are linked, Gov. They both served on drug committees.
Yes. I should have seen it. A lady of the letterheads, Hermione Sharp called her mother. When was that piece published?
Oh, last July.
Just before Dame Imelda changed her will to exclude her daughter.
But you said we'd excluded Hermione as a suspect.
Yes, but what I'm thinking is that the mother was furious that her daughter had given the game away. And she may have been right, because it was the piece in the paper that alerted someone to what she did in her spare time. DCI Duncan? Yes. OK, thank you. That was Path Lab. One of the packets we took away from Patricia Carey's house contained the wrong tablets.
Vesican, the bladder drug?
We need to get back to Westbury Medical Centre. I think we've stumbled on a new motive for murder. People are being killed for cutting short the lives of others.
Gov, I reckon I've got what happened here.
Go on, Rob.
Creedy told us that the single thing that most annoys him in medicine is having to refuse new drugs to patients.
Well, yes, I'm pretty sure the solution to this lies somewhere in that area.
So Creedy was killing the people who stopped him.
From being the doctor he wants to be. You made my patients die, so now I'll kill you.
Yes.
By giving them false prescriptions, which he would have known were dangerous for people in their conditions?
Yes, exactly.
I very nearly came to that conclusion myself, but there's a problem, isn't there?
Is there? Surely it's the perfect motive.
Yes, right motive, wrong man. Look, if Creedy had somehow managed to get hold of a supply of those drugs from somewhere, why wouldn't he give them to the patients who needed them rather than feeding them to old ladies who didn't?
No. You're right. So who did do it?
No, we're nowhere near a name, but as I think Al Pacino, or possibly the other one, once said in a movie, we need to follow the trail of the drugs.
Hello? No, we're not there yet. What? Which hospital? Okay, we'll go straight there. Cheers.
Who's in hospital? Another of Creedy's patients?
No. One of the consultants there, Mr. Tanner Harding, found dead this morning, suspected murder.
Okay. The turning was on the roundabout back there. Dr. Creedy, when we spoke the other day, you explained the way in which treatment of a seriously ill patient would be shared between you and a consultant at the General Hospital.
Yes, that's right.
Have you, in such cases, had dealings with Mr. Stuart Tanner Harding?
On and off. You have to realise that as a GP, you want, in the nicest possible way, to have as little to do with consultant oncologists as possible, because only a seriously ill patient would need one.
What's his specialism?
Renal. He has a reputation as the best kidney man in the district.
Renal? Really? And has he treated any of your patients recently?
Look, do you begin to understand what patient confidentiality means? Priests in the confessional have nothing on it.
Dr. Creedy, I'm conducting what is now almost certainly a triple murder investigation.
Triple?
Stuart Tanner Harding was found dead this morning.
Oh, no. How?
I can't go any further than suspicious circumstances. We have our own confidentiality, I'm afraid. Could Mr. Tanner Harding have prescribed either Viscerant or Vesicant for any of your patients?
Well, no, because neither would be indicated for renal treatment. And as I keep saying, to the point of tedium, they are not licensed in this region. So patients would need to pay for or source it themselves.
Well, I'll need a list of all the patients in this practice who've been treated for cancer of the bowel, bladder or kidneys in, well, let's say the last 2 years.
I'll need to clear that with the PCT and the General Medical Council.
Sure, but I need them quickly. We also need to speak to Mrs. Wells in the dispensary again.
Well, yes, if a consultant has prescribed a drug, it can be dispensed here by arrangement.
And suppose someone paid for a drug privately, as they can. Could that be distributed from here?
No. We've been asked that, but this is an NHS practice. And so Dr. Creedy's view was that it wouldn't be fair on the patients who don't have access.
Now, just to be absolutely clear about this, neither Viscerant nor Vesicant has ever been prescribed to any patient in this practice.
No, we keep telling you they couldn't be.
Something else I'm interested in. Would there be somewhere in the NHS a record of every drug dispensed in the country throughout the year?
Crikey. Well, if there is, I think Newcastle would be your best bet.
Newcastle?
A record of every prescription we dispense is sent to a department there so that the practice can claim the money back. I don't know why it's Newcastle, but that's the way it works. The NHS is rarely simple.
OK, and one other thing. When we spoke the other day, you said Dee Mortimer was a widow?
Yes.
When did she lose her husband?
Coming up to 6 months, I think.
Are you able to tell us what killed him?
I mean, it spread by the end. But he had it in the bowels, I think, originally.
Hello, this is Dee Mortimer. Please leave a message after the bleep.
Mrs. Mortimer, this is DS Rob Lorenzo from Scotland Yard. I need you to call me urgently on one of the numbers I've texted you. I'm not calling with bad news about anyone you know.
Although the answer to this goes back to her getting bad news.
You've worked it out?
I'm heading there, but I need to get some advice from a nice man.
I was utterly convinced that Tanner Harding would be linked with the drugs that killed the posh ladies. But he turns out to have dealt with a completely different part of the body. The 3 deaths don't connect.
Well, they don't if you look for straight lines.
One more year! 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 One more year!
Good afternoon. Henrietta Granville, Director of Public Policy for NICE. I've been fully briefed about why you're here. Sit down.
Thank you. The crowd outside, do you have that all the time?
Oh, yes. One more year, please. It's a national patient pressure group. That phrase is their mantra. And you know what? It gets to the nub of the issue. Actually, there's a certain honesty to it. The demand sounds modest. Most of the relatives we upset aren't looking for a cure or immortality, just a little bit longer. But it's the modesty of the demands that causes the problems. We and the other licensing bodies have to take a hard judgment on QALYs.
QALYs?
Quality Adjusted Life Years. It's a measure that guides all of our committees in deciding the merit of a certain intervention. A coronary artery bypass graft may extend life by 40 or more years, and so, when divided by the cost of the operation, scores high on QALYs.
Well, hang on, you divide the extra time gained by the price. So you're just looking for the cheapest treatments?
Ah, well, the word just in that sentence is, as it were, unjust. Expense isn't everything, but it's something. One of our jobs is to help to keep the NHS solvent. Look, you read in the paper a story, mother of 4 denied life-saving drug. Well, no, in these cases, not life-saving, life-extending.
Well, wouldn't you want yours extended if it came to it?
Sure, of course. But the question of how long for how much has to come into it. Listen, someone has to be tough to take a hard look at whether it actually alters the odds. Look, they yell 1 more year outside our windows because it sounds better. But in reality, it often comes down to 1 or 2 more months if you're lucky. And these are frequently experimental, expensive treatments, so they score very badly on QALYs.
What counts as a bad score?
These aren't hard and fast, but once you get above £25,000, £30,000 per QALY, we'd question whether it's cost-effective for the NHS. You have to. The new government's talking about funding all available cancer treatments, but once the pill firms hear that, they'll jack the price tags up. And no matter how high the budgets get, they'll never be higher than the hopes of the dying. But remember as well that these are only guidelines. People don't have to do what we say.
They don't?
No. The people shouting outside say we're playing God, but some primary care trusts and doctors don't believe in us. We have no power in Scotland at all, and not much in Northern Ireland. And even in England and Wales, a local PCT may decide a drug we've licensed is too expensive, or find the cash to fund a treatment we don't approve.
I had no idea it was so complicated.
Sure. And deliberately so, some might say.
Why deliberate?
Well, listen to what we walk through to get to work. Would you want that outside your house, or ringing you up in the early hours? One of the benefits of the system is that it's pretty hard to work out who actually stopped Auntie Gladys getting those tablets.
Gov.
Yes, Rob, let's just... Look, even so, within the organisation, there must be some kind of a paper trail. You could tell us if Dame Imelda Sharp and Lady Patricia Carey were on certain committees?
Oh, that's right, I looked it up for you. You asked about Viscerant? Dame Imelda was a member of the panel that refused a licence to that drug.
Right.
Now, Vesicant, you also asked about, is a different case. That was approved by NICE. Again, Dame Imelda was a panellist.
Approved? And Lady Patricia Carey wasn't connected with any of these decisions?
Well, she hasn't worked for us for some years. Interestingly, though, she does crop up later in papers relating to a High Court appeal on Vesicant, after its use was refused by PCT in Bucks. Lady Patricia served on the local prescriptions committee.
I see. One other thing. Is there any new wonder drug for kidneys that you've had to rule on recently?
Yes. There's something called Sanera, an almost anagram of renase. Latin for the kidneys, I think. We approved it last December. Actually, that's an odd one. Its QALY score was nearer £45,000, but it went through.
Right. But again, it would be up to individual health authorities whether to use it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Can't say you've made it clearer, but the confusion has been useful.
I hope so. I often think it's ironic that 2/3 of our work now is euthanasia or drug rationing.
It's coming together, isn't it? The revenge of the relatives.
Yeah, Rob. We started off thinking this was about doctors killing their patients, but it's the other way round. After a lot of cases, I end up thinking that all the motives for murder are still the old ones. Sex, money, jealousy. But we've got a new one here. Death to those who exercise the power of life and death. Kate Duncan? Yes? Thank you. Yes, I'll look at it now. Rob. Rob! Take those headphones off.
Sorry, Gov. I was listening to the tapes of Dame Imelda Sharp on the radio. See how much she gives away about her work on the drugs panels.
The PM and crime scene analysis on Stuart Tanner Harding are in. Does all the marks of a deliberate hit and run.
Have they ID'd the vehicle?
Yes, easily.
Someone who wanted to be caught?
Well, not exactly. Someone who had reason not to worry if they were.
Who is it?
The car's a Renault Espace, registered to a Des Valentine of Rectory Close, Westbury. Creedy's medical centre is in Rectory Lane, so it would be amazing if he's not a patient.
It keeps coming back to Dr. Creedy.
Yes, although he's more of a coincidence than a cause. But before we go to see Mr. Valentine, Creedy is the first urgent conversation we need to have.
Creedy.
Good morning, Doctor.
Oh, it's you.
Yes. I'm interested in the drug Sonera.
Yes?
Is it something you've ever prescribed?
I tried to, but we were unable to agree funding. In this case, the specialist couldn't get it past the financial manager in his unit.
The oncologist, was that Stuart Tanner Harding?
Yes.
And in this case, would you ever have had cause to tell the patient why you were unable to provide the drug?
Oh dear, I don't like the way this is going.
I'm afraid it's a very important question.
I may have told the patient that we simply couldn't have funded Sonera, while the hospital could have but wouldn't.
Is Mr. Desmond Valentine of Rectory Close, Westbury, a patient of yours?
Yes, I think I'm able to say that he is.
Was he also a patient of Mr. Tanner Harding?
To answer that would potentially breach patient confidentiality.
Come on, I'm investigating 3 murders. I have already told you that I need all your medical records urgently.
And the PCT is deciding whether to give them to you. They'll be in touch.
Ah, finally. The PCT have sent the list of Creedy's patients with the conditions we specified. Well, that's one we expected. Valentine Desmond of Rectory Close would have been a candidate for Sonera if someone would have paid for it.
We need to see him.
Quickly, I'd think.
Yes. What about Viscerant and Vesican?
There are 4 or 5 bladder patients. We'll just have to work through those. There's no obvious lead. But the bowel ones... Ah, here it is. Yes, Mortimer Daniel, 1942 to 2010, registered to the same Westbury address as D. Mortimer. Where are we on bringing her in?
Soon. We found her at her sister's.
Is that in Scotland?
Yeah. How did you...
It makes sense.
Are you Deirdre, commonly known as D. Mortimer of 34 Sandpit Lane, Westbury?
Yes.
And you have been employed since April 1994 as dispensary manager at the Westbury Medical Centre in Westbury?
Yes.
DCI Duncan?
I'm now going to have to ask you some questions you may find distressing. Your husband, Daniel Mortimer, died in January of this year. Was it in the course of his illness that you became aware of the drug Viscerant, and if so, how?
OMYP have a website.
You're referring to the patient support group called One More Year, please?
The website's international. All the patients in America with what Dan had, they were raving about this new thing. People who'd been given months turned into years, so of course we asked Dr. Creedy, but he said they wouldn't pay for it here.
Here being the Westbury PCT area. Mrs. Mortimer nodded. Mrs. Mortimer, I have your husband's death certificate. He died at a house in Scotland which I believe belongs to your sister?
Yes.
And where he seems to have been registered as a permanent resident, at least for the purposes of enrolling at a local GP surgery.
Look, when you love someone and they tell you he won't see spring, if there was a medicine on the moon that would have helped him, I'd have got a rocket from somewhere.
Is Vicerant licensed for use in Scotland?
Will you tell me why someone should be sentenced to death because of their address? Anyone with anything about them would have done the same.
When your husband sadly died in January, was there a supply of unused Vicerant? Mrs. Mortimer nodded. I put it to you that you deliberately placed those strong and unprescribed drugs in a packet intended for collection by Imelda Sharp. Mrs. Mortimer declined to respond. Mrs. Mortimer, there was a recent demonstration outside the medical centre by members of OMYP against the rationing of cancer drugs. Lady Patricia Carey became involved in an altercation with the protesters. I take it that it was either then or subsequently that you became aware of her part, as a member of the local PCT licensing committee, in refusing to authorise the drug Vesicant.
She more or less boasted that it had been her. We called her Lady Death.
I'm assuming that you got the supply of the Vesicant you gave to Patricia Carey from one of the relatives in the Westbury branch of OMYP? Mrs. Mortimer nodded. I'm going to need you to give me the name of the patient concerned.
No, they didn't know what I was doing. I told them if they gave me the unused packets, I'd get rid of them.
Any more questions, Detective Sergeant?
Did you enter on the computerised booking system a false appointment for a doctor to make a home visit to Patricia Carey?
Mrs. Mortimer nodded. OK, I think we can leave it there.
We haven't asked about the consultant, Mr. Tanner Harding.
Oh, no. Mrs. Mortimer wasn't directly involved in that. And there it is, parked neatly on the drive, the car that killed the consultant.
Oh, God, isn't that an undertaker's van outside?
I think it is.
Another death, Gov.
Yes, although on this occasion, from what we laughably call natural causes.
Mr. Desmond Valentine, we assume?
We do. After 2 patients killed by taking cancer drugs they didn't need. 1 killed, so OMIP would say, by not taking the ones he did need.
Of course, I'm well aware that when you first came to see me here, I was the prime suspect for killing the 2 patients.
We have to consider every possibility.
Especially after recent cases, yes. What bothered me was that I knew that I hadn't done it, but I couldn't possibly work out who had. Or even what had been done. The system doesn't think of patients or dispensary managers behaving that way. Probably, ironically, because doctors are seen as the gods.
What a country this is. Full of people pretending they live somewhere else so they can get into a school, so they can live a little longer. Well, to some extent, I sympathise. Empathise. Actually, my husband died.
I'm sorry.
He must see so many.
Yes, but every single one of them feels like a defeat. But there's another irony. Why were there incomplete courses of Vicerant and Vesican floating around the system? Because they didn't work. Or at least they did nothing to alter the outcome of these cases. The relatives will say, if only they'd been available earlier. But it may just as well prove that the licensing authorities were right. The pills weren't worth the money. Look, I don't want anyone to die. It's against my principles. But if OMIP wanted to kill anyone, they should have gone to Switzerland. Not to kill themselves, but how strange the way that country turns up in all our health debates. But to take out a few of the greedy drugs manufacturers. If they didn't charge so much, we would be able to prescribe their drugs as widely as we should.
Take unto himself the soul of our dear sister Patricia, here departed. We therefore commit her body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Before we complete the interment, Oliver wished to say a few words.
Thank you, yes. When my mother became Lady Patricia, she was obviously pleased but a little disappointed, because Doctor was the title that meant most to her. On the day I left to start medical training, she told me that the most important words in medicine were primum non nocere, first do no harm. My family will never recover from the fact that Mummy died from harm being done to her. But we have the consolation of knowing that she always lived up throughout her medical career to that short motto. It was not her fault that she was living in a time of, forgive me if my Latin is rusty, primum demetior argentum.
Very touching words about your mother, Dr. Carey.
Thank you for coming, and for writing to me about the timing of the trial.
There's one tiny thing I need to ask you. We took your prints to eliminate you from the people who handled your mother's drug packets.
Yes. Where is this going?
I don't know if you know that this whole investigation began with a letter to the Met suggesting that the death of another patient might be suspicious.
I didn't.
Ah. Because your prints were on the envelope.
I really can't explain that.
I think we probably can. Did your mother ever give you letters to post?
Later on she got out less and less.
You said your mother became worried someone might try to kill her. She clearly had similar fears about Imelda Sharp.
And as it turns out, she wasn't going to lally. God, or whatever, rest her soul.
Yes. That Latin phrase you ended on. First...
The British doctor's motto from now on, I fear. First check the money.
In The Power of Life and Death by Mark Lawson, Kate Duncan was played by Hayden Gwynn and Rob Lorenzo by Lloyd Thomas. Hermione Sharp was Abigail McKern, Dame Imelda Sharp, Honor Blackman, Dr. Tom Creedy, Nick Dunning, Dr. Ollie Carey, Chris Mahallam, Sue Wells, Abigail McGibbon, and Dee Mortimer, Stella McCusker. Jeremy Vine played himself. The Power of Life and Death was directed in Belfast by Owen O'Callaghan.